Hello, I am roaringbug and welcome to my Sims 4 speed build. Today we are making a house from this shell that I got off the gallery. It is called Large Vampire Victorian. And I found this shell off the gallery and I thought it had really good bones. I thought I could really make a really nice Victorian out of this build, and even though it has these curved walls, I thought that would be a nice feature in a greenhouse. So right now, what you're seeing is all the roofs that I am adding to this house. Now, a simple trick in order to make a house look Victorian is just to make the pitch of the roof very steep, because it gives it the dramatic effect of looking a lot more taller and a lot more like tapered, and it has that little, I know you can't see it, but I'm like putting my hands together to try and like mimic what it is to have like a steep roof pitch on a roof piece. And I feel like that's all you really need in order to translate that into a gothic effect. And it's all of these design trim pieces that I'm adding on now. Now, even though this is a traditional shell challenge, is you usually you can't add any walls. Usually only half walls are allowed. But I feel like a gray area is what you're seeing right now. I am adding walls, but I'm turning them into spandrels, because you can't add spandrels without putting down a wall first. It's the schematics of the game, and I had to do that just to add these little spandrels to the house. I only did it in the front and in the back entranceway, but I didn't do it for all of these little bump outs, for all these little balconies that I made on the build. So this house strictly uses only the vampire pack and base game. So if you just have the vampire pack, you can totally use this house because it doesn't use anything else beside the base game to fill in what's missing. And I raise the wall height to the tallest wall height just so I can use these curved top windows that are in base game. And I like using these windows from base game because they actually have a lot of variants of this window, where you can have singulars, doubles, and you can have a tall wall height. And it also has a really good matching rectangle shaped window that you're seeing right now that I'm stacking. And you would think that a vampire wouldn't want all these windows in their house, but sunlight does not affect your vampires when they're indoors. So I thought, yes, they could definitely go with all of this sunlight. It'll make the build look more cheerful, because the windows in the vampire pack are very small. They're like these tiny gothic windows, and the only thing I used was these little base game windows, which I think are very pretty. And now I'm just using a basic trick, using a fence to make that little, I don't know, like awning thing in the balcony. And I'm using these like oval overlapped like windows for decoration. And I decided to make the top tower all black, and also on that roof piece, because I thought it would look a lot more interesting. And now I'm adding this trim to the roof of the second floor. And what you're seeing right now is I am adding a platform just so that that trim has something to grab onto, because it's just hanging there. And I just had to do that in order for it to grab onto something in the game. And I added this trim to the top of the first floor. And I'm drawing this square because I'm going to put a staircase in the front of this platform. So first I thought I would make it brick, but then I changed it into a solid black staircase. And I raised the platform. I like raising it like 5 steps. And I moved the lot back because I didn't have enough room to put a fence. And I thought this lot could use a fence. This lot was the one that the original post for the shell had this house. This is the empty lot in the vampire world. And it's just one tile too small to put a fence all around the outside. But I just put a fence that's much shorter along the platform, so I think it looks okay. And I use this stone for the porch area in the front and the back of the house. It's from vampires, and I don't think I've ever used it before. It's actually a really good stone like pattern, and I think it's because the little icon picture that shows off what this stone floor looks like doesn't really do it justice when you put it down in a lot. And now I'm putting all of these plants, and they're all debug plants, but only from the vampire pack. So I used a little bit of mix of base game and vampire pack debug plants. And I just kind of layered them up to try and make it seem less flat. And I put these 2 trees in the greenhouse area of this house because they're plasma fruit plants. So if you're playing a vampire, they could get the fruit from the plant instead of biting Sims. And I put all these gargoyles down. At first, I put down the fairy-looking gargoyles, but then I was like, that is way too pretty. This is a vampire house. What am I doing? So I used the gargoyle-looking gargoyles, but only in the front of the house because, you know, you would put like the more intimidating gargoyles in the front of the house because traditionally gargoyles are supposed to ward off evil from your property. So all the scary ones are in the front and all the pretty lady ones are in the back just to make your garden look more lovely. And, you know, my plants are jumping off from the platform because it's like interfering with it. If you notice that when you're building that your platform is messing with your decor, you could just put the house back down to ground level and then do all your plants and then raise it back up, and the plants will stay where you positioned them when it was on ground level. But I didn't do that because I thought I could get away with it not having all of those plants on ground level. And what you just saw is I put down all of these chandeliers. They're all from the vampire pack just because I wanted to see the inside of this lot. And I put down these stairs, and I had some problems with the stairs, and I also had some problems with the curved walls, making the walls disappeared when I closed it off. I didn't show it in the recording, but the way I got around that was that I drew a wall separate from the rest of the wall, and then I picked it up and then I placed it down to where I wanted it to be. And I'm gonna do a similar trick here with the stairs, because that hole for the staircase is touching a wall that leads to the outside. It's going to mess with the schematics of the stairs. So what I did is I drew a fence, picked it up, and then placed it to where I wanted it to be, because it was going to affect how the game like registers what that hole is, because it thinks it's going to be outside. And I just sped through putting down all this wallpaper, and now I'm furnishing. So this room is the living room slash, I don't know, like it's like a den slash entertainment space. Now that I think about it, I don't think I did like a formal dining room in this house. And I wanted this rug not to be too close to the fireplace because if you have a rug too close to a fireplace in the game, it'll catch on fire. And I didn't want that to happen, so I'm trying really hard to make sure that rug is at least one tile space away from the fireplace. And I put a jukebox, and an organ, a pipe organ in this build, because the pipe organ is part of the vampire pack. And I cut it out, but what I did is I put the same curtain on every single window. But I really think that's boring, so I didn't save the footage of me putting curtains on every single window in this house. And now I'm making this kitchen, and I deleted those windows because when you put a kitchen in, the windows have to be low so that it's right over the counter space for a sink. So I'm just mapping out the kitchen first, and then I'll do the windows in the kitchen second. So first I tried those little windows, and then I was like, it's breaking up the feng shui symmetry. So I just left these larger rectangular windows. And I got rid of that light because it wasn't working out, because I wanted this hanging pots and pan thing. And I put these 6 hanging pendant lights. And at first I put this table to represent like an island space table in the build. It doesn't have any kind of gameplay because this table doesn't have any chairs, and your sim doesn't interact with any tables unless it has a chair. When they eat, they can sit in this little nook by the window, like a little breakfast nook, and they can eat there. But I guess that's the only place they can like really eat, which I think makes sense. If it's a vampire, they're not gonna eat, so I don't think a dining room even really matters to them. Okay, so if you have a roof and you notice the trim of the roof is sticking into a wall, what you saw on camera is what I did is I made a copy of that roof and I put it against the wall so that I can make that smaller piece that touches the wall have a really small trim, and the smaller trim won't intersect into the wall. And I made it into 2 pieces so that you can see the larger trim on the outside roof piece that you do see. I hope my explanation makes sense, because hearing myself say it I feel like it doesn't make sense. So another trick I'm doing here is I raised a mirror on top of this base game dresser. And what you're seeing now is I'm alt placing these objects so that I can nudge them in the right place. So it looks like it's on the right place on that dresser. And this is how I made a faux looking vanity. And I put some plants here. And that tiny plant in that pot is a fake plant. That is one of the debug plants. And I just made it look like a potted plant by using an actual pot. And you're just seeing the headache I did raising these curtains. But like I said, I only did a few. I'm not showing you every window I curtain because that's kind of boring. And this room for a kid, I made it for an infant because infants are still very new to the game. And normally what I would do for a build that I am not playing in, I would make it that a sim in any age group could live here. But for this particular house, I dressed up the child's room as an infant room. And what I don't normally do, but what I did here is I shrunk that nightlight, because realistically a nightlight would be very small. And I'm sorry you just heard my phone. Okay, and now I'm just doing more decorations. So this little entranceway has a mirror, and I put a sofa as an entranceway sofa. And now I'm putting more decorations in this primary bedroom. And now I'm putting vines on the outside of this vampire house, just so that it looks pretty. Vines are tricky. Sometimes they might get away in your gameplay, especially like if you're playing with half walls cut away. But I didn't put it everywhere, so I don't think it's going to interfere with your gameplay. You're not going to see a giant plant in your way with the walls. And if they are in this particular area, because I only put it in one area of the house, you can just do like full walls down instead. And I put these debug like plants out here because I thought that would look pretty. And now I use this terrain paint on the pathway in the front and the back of the house, and I tried to soften it with these little stones, which I think are really good. And I do my signature light dusting of dirt everywhere, so I use the pine needle dirt because I feel like it works for this particular landscape. So yeah, now I'm just working on lights. So I put like those lights there, and apparently I found these plates, and I was like, I like these plates more than I like that, I don't know, organizer. And I wanted to put these things on this counter in the corner. So yeah, and I had that display of bread, and I decided I should make it functional. So I put a functional bar in the kitchen. So, you know, if your vampire wants to make a vampire drink with the plasma fruits, they can. And yeah, I'm just adding more decorations here and there, and some outdoor lighting on the balconies. And this tower, what I end up doing is I turned that into a room for a coffin for a vampire. So you could technically have your sim go up there using the ladder, but you know, pretty early on, your vampires can learn how to transform into a bat, and they wouldn't even need the stairs. But yeah, so I guess in theory it's technically a 3-bedroom, but I posted it as a 2-bedroom house, you know, for your regular mortal sims. And I put these little lights just around the backyard, and I put down this base game wrought iron looking, I don't know, patio furniture, and then I just circled it with a bunch of these candles for candle lighting. It looks kind of seance-y, but I think it's appropriate for a vampire's house. And I put a mailbox, and I put a trash can in like that hall section that leads to the backyard. Okay, so I'm just testing out the lights, and I think this is the last detail I add, is just this detailing on the greenhouse roof. So yes, now I'm into my screenshots. So if you like this build, you can get it off the gallery at roaringbug. And please like, subscribe, or leave me a comment. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.